let's talk ultra-wide lenses, specifically ultra-wide lenses that are made for vlogging on the Fujifilm system. Now, when it comes to vlogging, 99% of the time I am using this, the 16-55 f2.8 Mark II. Because the Mark II is smaller and lighter than the Mark I, it is easier for me to vlog with this lens. However, 16mm might not be wide enough for you because obviously on an APS-C system, 16 times 1.5 is around 24mm, which is not really wide enough for you. So you can think maybe I'll get the 10-24 f4 by Fujifilm, which is also not a bad choice. It's small, it's light, but the problem is it is f4, meaning you're not gonna get that shallow depth of field, and in lower light situations, you're kind of screwed. So maybe you can opt for something like this. This is the 8mm f3.5 by Fujifilm. However, 8mm is very, very wide. You're gonna get distortions, and f3.5 is not as shallow as you think. So a few years ago, I made a video on this lens. This is the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. And this lens has been perfect for vlogging, getting cinematic video, and it was just a great lens. It performed perfectly. What was the issue though? Well, the 16-55 f2.8 Mark II is around $1,500. The Viltrox 13mm f1.4 is about half of that. And the lens that I'm shooting with is what we're going to talk about today. The lens that I'm shooting with right now is the Viltrox 15mm f1.7, and it is part of their Air series. And I'm going to tell you why this lens is perfect as a substitute for this lens, which is a substitute for this lens. Let's get to it. So right now I am hand holding this lens, and the reason why hand holding this lens is super easy, especially on a heavier camera, is because it only weighs 180 grams. This lens is super tiny, super small, and super comfortable to hold. But that's not all. Let's talk more about the build quality of this lens, right? So this lens is made of metal, which is something super great and premium, but also the filter thread on the front is 58mm. And right now I do have an ND filter on it, which is a common thread. You can get those out of Amazon. And I do have an ND, so let's just see this. And with the ND on, I am shooting at f1.7. So it does go from f1.7 to f16, and you can see the bokeh looks really good, really beautiful. It is also tracking my eye right now, but we will talk about autofocus later on in this video. Another cool trick about this lens is the minimum focusing distance. Now look at this, look how close I can get to focus. This is 0.23 meters. I don't know feet, I don't know inches, don't ask me about that. I'll just put it on the screen right here, but it is 0.23 meters, which is a pretty good minimum focusing distance. The bokeh looks great, the size of the lens, the weight of the lens, absolutely phenomenal. It is lighter than the 13mm f1.4, and it is also lighter than the 16-55, and obviously the focal range, which is 15mm, is pretty wide to get the entire scene and me with a nice little bokeh. Now, because of the build quality and the weight of this lens, I have actually not used a tripod in this video yet. I have just been rigging up my camera, my X-H2S, with the 15mm Air Viltrox f1.7 to random objects that I find in the park. So right now you're actually clamped onto a dead tree branch. If that makes any sense? You'll just see the B-roll, but this lens is super lightweight. This is such a compact setup. Now, I did say this is a 58mm diameter filter thread. Now, I am actually using an ND filter, which is a 52mm, and I do have 2 step down rings set up on this small lens. And as you can see, there's not really any vignetting around, which is something I really appreciate and I really like. That means I don't have to buy another ND filter for another lens that I will use. So keep that in mind. And that is pretty much the main advantage of having such a small and lightweight lens, which is pretty much you can rig it up anywhere. So right now your guys are rigged up to another light pole. But the best thing is it is f1.7, so you do get that nice blurry background, and it lets you get some nice and unique angles. Now, if I did want to do this with my 8mm lens, I could actually do this as well, but with f3.5, I won't have this bokeh. With a 10-24 f4, I also won't have this bokeh. With a 13mm f1.4 by Viltrox as well, it'll be a bit too heavy, so it's gonna lean down. And with the 16-55 f2.8, it's also a bit heavy, so it's not gonna work out as well. So this lens is one of the best lenses right now to get some nice and unique shots for your APS-C system. So we have talked about the build quality of this lens, but we did not talk about the optical quality. Now, when it comes to the optical quality, I've had no issues really with this lens. The only thing is at f1.7 fully open, it is a bit soft even in the center. So you can see I'm a bit soft right now, but if you bump up your aperture to f2.8 or f4, you get even a sharper image in the middle. So technically the best aperture to be on is between f2.8 to f4, but you can still open up to f1.7, especially when you're shooting video. You're not going to notice it too much. However, if you are shooting photos, you will notice the differences, and I'll show you some sample photos right now. So at f1.7, you'll see there's a bit of softness in the center at f2.8, and then when you bump up to f4, you'll see it is a bit even sharper in the middle. But when it comes to color reproduction, no issues really. When it comes to the quality, I'm super happy with it for the price that it is, which we will talk about later on in the video. And I do want to reiterate that I am still not using a tripod. Actually, you guys are clamped on the bench right now, and I'll show you a clip of how that looks like. But next up, let's talk about autofocus and how good is the autofocus on this lens. Okay, so now let's talk about autofocus. Specifically, let's talk about video autofocus. Now with an f1.7 aperture, the autofocus is not bad. However, it's not as fast as I would want it to be. Now look at this. This is now focusing on my face, right? And I'm moving left and right. I'm gonna move a bit quicker, gonna go back, gonna go forward. But if I just put something in front of my face, so let's say I put my X100 it takes a bit to focus on the camera, and then it takes a bit to focus on my face. Now there is a bit of like focus hunting, focus breathing. Now look at this again. Let me do it again. There you go. Camera, face, camera, face. It's just a split second. It's not a big deal. Also, it is a bit bright and overexposed in the background, so I give it that. However, if we do stop down to, let's say now f2.8, right? Now this should be a bit slower, but let's take a look. You can see there's a bit of focus hunting, focus delay, and it's not as fast as you would think. However, it's not really that big of an issue. If you're vlogging, holding it to your face, using face detection, it should have no issues striking you, especially in a bit of a low light situation because you are shooting at f1.7. Now, when it comes to photos, didn't really see much of an issue. It was actually focusing pretty quick, was pretty snappy when it comes to photos. The autofocus was not having much of an issue. At f1.7, even in low light, it was focusing on the subject pretty quick. And that is something I am obviously super happy with, but let's go back down to f1.7. And there we go. And now, let's just do a bit of jumping left and right. Yeah, it doesn't have much of an issue. I can get up close, takes a second to focus, go back. And you can see, there's a tiny bit of delay, but not really a big deal. Can you help me? So far we've talked about what is good about this lens, and now it's time to talk about the downsides of the 15mm f1.7, because every lens has its downsides. Now, the first thing that I did notice is the lack of an aperture ring. Now, obviously, if you do shoot Fujifilm, then you know there's always an aperture ring on the lenses, which is one of the best things in my opinion about these lenses. I love just the tactile feel. I love the ability to switch apertures pretty quick. And even the Viltrox 13mm f1.4, which is one of their Pro series, has an aperture ring on it. Meanwhile, the 15mm f1.7, it does not have an aperture ring. So you do have to control your aperture with one of the dials, front dials or back dials. It depends how you set up your camera. Another thing is that the 15mm is not weather sealed. So if you are someone who's gonna vlog in the rain or snow or in extreme conditions, the 15mm is not gonna be good for you as it is not weather sealed. Now, two other things which I did talk about as well is the softness. So at f1.7, it is a bit soft. I am shooting now at f3.2. So it is a bit soft at f1.7, and the autofocus is not as fast as you would want it to be, but it is good enough in many situations. And those are pretty much the downsides of having this lens. So if you are looking for something a bit higher end, then this lens is not for you. However, the best part about this lens specifically is the cost. This lens costs $239 US, which is around 330 Canadian, and it is insanely budget friendly. If you're a person who is on a budget, who is a creator who wants to vlog and do some vlogging quickly on the run for an APS-C system. I think you will not be disappointed at all with this 15mm f1.7. For $239 US, it is almost less than half than the 13mm f1.4. So I generally don't think that you will be disappointed with this lens. And yeah, if you're a vlogger who does not want to break the bank, or you're a creator who wants to make talking head videos with an ultra wide look, you don't want to break the bank, you're on a budget, you also don't care about weather sealing, you're probably like shooting indoors or shooting on sunny days where there's not really humidity or it's not really raining, then this lens would be the absolute best lens for you to use. Now, I do want to end this video by saying all the shots, the talking head shots, were taken with the 15mm f1.7. I'm super happy with this lens. For the cost, it's actually incredible. Has a lot of downsides, but also has better upsides. So if you do want to pick up this lens, I will have a link in the description. I hope you guys like this video, and I do hope you guys subscribe, because I am trying to hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So if we can make it happen, that would be great. But I will also see you guys in the next video.